I'm working on a project, a personal project, kind of a product I would like to launch at some point. And I'm programming the front end right now. So I have this routers thing, and now there's a list of routers. And I'm using Vue.js here. And I'm trying to make the form work properly. So everything kind of works. Well, actually some things kind of work. So the name works, blah, blah, blah. Choosing tags works. Saving it works in the backend. However, I have this little custom attributes field here, which is it's supposed to be a JSON field, so you could write any JSON payload that you want here. The problem is that, so you see, as I go writing, I just put this here for debugging, but like, so number 3, it's definitely a valid JSON, and just like this quote, and then D is not valid JSON, and then it shows invalid stuff, and I can keep on writing and it's just gonna work. However, the problem is once I write some valid JSON like this, so I'm gonna type in foo, and then so it kind of jumps, so now it's valid, and then I try to write, I'm gonna write bar, but once I type in B, the cursor goes to the beginning, and then I type A, and I have to go back with the cursor, and then I type a comma, and now it's invalid JSON again. So I can keep on writing anything, but if I start to make it valid, it's valid JSON, and you see I can go and type. Now once it gets valid, my cursor, so I'm gonna type E, and this is gonna become a valid JSON, and then the cursor is gonna go to the beginning. Look at that. So this is totally annoying. And for instance, if I type enter, return, and then I type E, let's see, true. You see, so it went away with my indentation. The reason for this is the way I did this. So I'm using Vue.js, and where is this editor? So here's the form, and here is so I made this class over here, this component, which I called code editor. So it what it does is that it takes ACE, which is this code editor. So ACE editor, JavaScript. So it's an open source thing. This is C9 thing, I don't know. You see, so this component here, this ACE is this component, but as you can see by the web page, this is not very modern. Anyway, this is not made for Vue.js. So what this code editor component does is that it wraps this pure plain JavaScript component to make it work with Vue.js. So the way one uses it is like this. So here is my code editor being used. So I can so this value input actually is just I think I don't even need this. Yeah, I could just delete this, in fact, and I could use because this value and input thing is just the same as VModel. So what VModel does is that it is a syntax sugar for putting a bound value and a v on input. So this is v bind, I think. So a lot of syntax sugar going on here. And if I use the VModel, I can just come over here, and so this is exactly the same thing as this one. So I'm going to delete this. And this is this validity change is just an event that I put there. Actually, what this is that it makes this valid JSON invalid stuff, which goes at the bottom of the editor. I just made this for debugging. So you see this valid JSON, and then it goes to invalid stuff. This is controlled by this event here over here. Anyway, let's reload this. So the problem I'm having is, so I changed the code now. It's using the V model, and the behavior is the same. So behavior, and once it gets into, you see now it's a valid JSON. And I'm gonna type, like, I'm gonna try to type the same here. So the same, you see what the problem is. So it's really really annoying. And you see, and the problem is because it's kind of a loop that we have here. So whenever this value is being fed to the editor, so the value goes to the editor, but the type of these custom attributes, it's not a string. So this is a JSON object or whatever is in here. So it's parsed. So it's parsed. So now the type of this thing here with this value is an array. So the problem is that this is a parsed value, because when I send this to the backend in order to save, or when I retrieve this from the backend, it is gonna come like as an object or as an array, or it's not gonna come as a string, unless of course it's a JSON string, like inside double quotes. This is very annoying. So while it is invalid, I can go and type ahead. So this is now nice. But once it gets validated, then it gets annoying, because the code editor component, it is only updating the event back to the model. So it's only updating the value of this model.custom attributes whenever the JSON is valid, because this is supposed to be JSON, and if we have invalid JSON there, it's not possible to put an actual object in there. So actually this code editor is not quite code editor, because I wrapped it. So I made a JSON code editor, which is specific for JSON. I should change this, and in fact here I should now change this. So it's just aliasing code editor with JSON code editor. I'm gonna remove these. And so this is code editor, which just wraps the ACE editor. And JSON code editor is just a small component, as you can see here, which then uses the code editor, but it validates JSON. So what it does is that code editor would accept a string of code, wouldn't validate the code at all, and would just pass back and forth strings. And this JSON code editor, it kind of does some validation. So it does, instead of accepting a string as an input, it's going to accept an object, anything that would be valid if you passed it to, where is it, JSON.parse, which is here. So once this anything that you could pass to JSON parse would be a valid thing to pass to this component as the value of this component. And the thing is, so the way that V model works in Vue is that this JSON code editor component, it gets the value, so the value enters in the component through the value to the value prop. So this is just the way Vue works. It says that the name has to be value, at least for Vue 2. I think for Vue 3 this changed, but I'm still using Vue 2 here, Vue version 2. And And once the value changes inside, so I'm writing inside the code editor and the value changes. So the user has produced some input. Then the component is supposed to trigger, to emit a event, and the name of the event has to be input. So this is just some convention that Vue.js has made up. And the way I did this component is that, so I'm gonna put a debugger here so I can explain it to you. I'm gonna put it here, put some spaces around, and let's go. So I'm gonna write a valid JSON. I'll remove this. I'm gonna write some valid JSON. So I'm gonna type in number 4 or any number. So any number is gonna immediately be some valid JSON. So now this is valid, and as you can see, I am in the editor input change method, which is bound by the input in the code editor changed. It's gonna call this editor input change method, which I am now on here debugging. And you can see that the value of new value is the string 4, which is a string that comes directly from the code editor. And so I call this little function over here called convert to JSON value, and what it does is it returns an array of 2 values. So the first value of the array is going to be a boolean determining whether the JSON was valid or not. So for instance, if I would do let's say like full bar. So full bar is not valid JSON, but if I put it in double quotes, it's now going to be a valid JSON, and the return value is going to be true because now the value is a valid JSON, and then the actual value. So if I would do like this, now this is not valid JSON, and full bar 300. So now you see the return is an array, and now here is the parsed, so the parsed object, and whether this was a true JSON, a valid JSON or not. So this is what it does. And then I store in valid and JSON value. And so this variable just checks whether it was not valid and now it's valid, or the other way around, just if the validity of the JSON has changed, because then it emits this validity change event. And the thing is that it is only going to emit the input value only when the JSON is valid. So in this case, valid is true because it's a valid JSON that I wrote in there. So number 4 is a valid JSON, and now it's going to emit this. And once it emits this, you see now the cursor again came to the very beginning of the editor. And this is because this event is emitted here, and it is catched. Where is it catched? So here I have my custom. So this is the form. So this div here is exactly this part of code here in the screen. So custom attributes, and then the editor. So here is the label custom attributes, and this is the JSON code editor. And that input that we are firing, that emitting that event, it is coming to this VModel thing, and Vue.js is automatically catching that event and updating the model.custom attributes. Now the problem is that this is gonna enter in a loop right now. So this value is now gonna be changed, and when this is changed, so remember that I said that this actually is the same as doing how is it again, value and an input. So this is kind of this is the same as doing this. I don't know if this is valid code. Probably it's not. I think this event target value. I don't know, but like it's think of some code running in here, and whenever the input event is emitted, which is emitted here with the JSON value, not the string, but the parsed JSON already. so a JavaScript object, it is going to come here and change this thing. So it's going to change model.custom attributes with the new value coming from the event. However, what this means is that now this has been changed, and this is going to be propagated through the value. So this is going to go back inside the JSON code editor. So it's going to change this value, and it's going to feed back to this value prop from the JSON code editor, which is then going to trigger this watch, which is then going to trigger this function, set editor value, which is then going to convert the JSON object to a string. So what this does is it calls this function that is going to just basically it's going to do some stuff over here, but it's going to basically just JSON stringify, so convert from a JSON into a string, like a JSON, convert a JavaScript object into a JSON representation of that object. And yeah, so this is kind of a loop. So once you change something in the editor, it is going to come back through here. That's why this is very problematic. So for instance, here I have the name field, so I can just go typing without any further issues. You see, the cursor is not going back to the beginning. And I don't know exactly how Vue.js does this, but I would suppose that the way it works is, I don't know, it's probably comparing these strings. So I did input a string here, and it made all that loop of going to the input event and coming back, and then Vue figures that the value hasn't changed, and it just keeps the cursor here. It doesn't update. Anyway, the key here is that there is no transformation of content. If I would just use the code editor, so I have this JS code editor, which accepts the value as a JSON object. So the value that is here fed to, so the value that is fed to this thing is not the string itself that is going to be shown in the editor. In fact, it is. So it's not the string it is the object. So this is a problem. And I'm thinking of some ways to solve this problem, because it's just the way it is now. It's just totally unusable. Let me remove this debugger. It is totally unusable. So nobody. This is just too annoying. I mean, unless you would edit it in a different place and then copy paste, but that's not the idea. That's why I have a full text code editor inside this. And the way, I don't know how to solve this, but I was looking in some concept called Mvvm. So that's Mvvm, which is Model-View-ViewModel. And I think this is the way to solve this problem. And I'm gonna try and work with that right now. Cool, so I had to do a little break to check if I'm filming myself with my mobile camera. So I check if it was actually being recorded and stuff. Back to the code. So I was trying to, what I'm going to try to achieve right now is to do some model view or view model stuff. So the way it works currently is that once this form is loaded, it issues an AJAX, actually it's a fetch request to the backend. And yeah, it's a fetch request to the backend, and it fetches the. I think this is wrong here. And it fetches the model that is going to be edited. Yeah, this is not necessary. Let me comment all this code so it's less of a data load. less of a distraction to have. Anyway, so the way it works, I have this, I have kind of a wrapper because I'm gonna have a lot of entities. So I'm gonna have bindings, routers, tags, topics, definitions, and subscriptions, and there's gonna be more than that as well. And I don't want to program each form separately. So all things that they have in common, I wanna do in a way that I can easily reuse later. So all the loading. So as you can see here in network, I'm gonna clear this and let me clear this. So once I click in a router, it's gonna issue some requests. So it's gonna fetch the list of tags from the backend, which is gonna be this list. That code was indeed important. Yeah, this is something that is not done yet, but the idea is that I don't need to write this code over here. So the idea is that this form is going to be embedded in abstract editor, which is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting of issuing all the fetch requests. So for instance, inside this form, I don't have anything calling the code that actually fetches the route. So the object in the backend is a route. So let's go here, and when I click here, it's gonna fetch this one. So this one is gonna go to API blah 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 /API /v1/routers, and then the ID of this route that I'm editing, and the response is just gonna be the payload of this thing here. There we go. Here is our little attribute called custom attributes. Which, as you can see, is not a string, but indeed an object, and null is a totally valid object. And the thing is that I'm just, the way it's working now, it's just grabbing this string over here, and it's just doing JSON parse, and this object over here, it is feeding directly into the form. And as you can see, where is it? So this is the form component, and it's going to vary according to which route I am in. So there's a lot of meta programming inside this, and this is going to be the model. So the model is there's going to be these save buttons, which is this little button over here, and yeah. Anyway. It's going to be the form, and model is going to be injected here, which is this prop over here. So this is going to be the model, which comes directly from the fetch request to the server. And the fetch, so whenever let me put in here some mounted. I think mounted is going to work. Let x equals this, because sometimes it optimize the way. And so I'm reaching this screen, and I don't know if I can refer to this equals x. Yes. So this dot, and then the model. So the model is going to be, there we go. So the model is going to be directly the object that came from the fetch request. Now this is not good, because as you can see, the custom attributes, it's an object, and it's going to be fed directly to the custom attributes component. But the fact is that what I need to do, I think at least what I did, there's probably 1,000 different solutions for this, but the way I see the solution working is that for this JSON code editor, I have to, instead of passing an object attribute, I have to pass in a string. And then I need to only convert this string back to an object before sending the request to the server to either update this object or create, if we're talking about creating a new object. So yeah, let's get started doing that. And the way I'm gonna do it, I have these models thing here, but it's just a list of the models that I have, and the one that I'm currently working on is this router model. And as you can see, it's just an object. It doesn't have anything fancy, so no classes and stuff. And I created this class called ViewModel, which I'm not 100% sure what I'm gonna do. But the idea is that it's gonna be in between. So it's gonna be something that's gonna go in between the form. So this is gonna be fed to the form, and it's gonna deal with converting like the string back to the JSON object and the JSON object back to the string and stuff. Yeah, it's kind of like maybe to have a more simple example is I imagine that I would have a component that would allow me to pick a date or a timestamp. So a timestamp with a date. In the backend, it could be stored as an integer, as a Unix. I don't know how to properly pronounce this, but Unix epoch, or whatever. Yeah, this is perfect actually, because as you can see here, Unix epoch. So this is going to be the amount of seconds since 1st January 1970, for whatever reason. And this is going to be the date. And you're not going to present this to the user in your screen. You're going to present like something like this, or even better, date picker, time picker component. But at least this. So at least this. So the thing is that whatever is in the data itself, inside the model, which holds the data of the object, is going to be slightly different. It could be slightly different from what is being displayed on screen. So here you would need some transformation from this to this whenever you would display this thing. And whenever the user would type in this, and imagine that the user had to type in this, like the user would go like set, and then this would be invalid, because once the user completes typing everything in, so now this is valid, but this is invalid. You know, so it's the same problem that I'm having. This is just simpler, probably simpler than that. But here we're talking about transforming things as well. So the idea is that the model stores the data that comes from the backend, so the actual data. And the view, so the view is this what we are seeing here. So the view is what the user is seeing. And the model view, or the view model, so in Mvvm, so we have the model, which is the object that is going to be stored in memory or in the backend or whatever, and the view is going to be the screen. So this actual screen is going to be the view, and the view model is an object that is going to sit in between the view and the model. And this is what I see as working. This concept is not new. It's here for already some years, and people have been using this. And I hope this works. So I did some reading about this. I never did this before, and I'm gonna try to implement this from the reading that I got. If I understood the concept correctly, I'm gonna implement this and try to make it work. So probably this is gonna get probably this is gonna get ugly, because this is the first time I'm doing this. Is gonna serve like an experiment. And as you can see here, I have multiple models in this left menu, and I'm trying to make this routers model first. I'm trying to make this form perfect, kind of perfect, kind of working. Then I can replicate this pattern to all the other entities that I have here. So let's go with routers. So what I have here is a router model, and whenever I have this variable called model class, I'm referring to this object here. So it's going to have the path. This is going to be used by, so I have something called sync.js here, which is some code that is going to deal with calling fetch and Ajax and stuff. So getting data from server and updating data to server using the format that my backend talks. So just a custom thing that I did. Friendly name, this is just if I have to show something to the user, so the user is going to see this as called router. And here are the attributes. So this model has these attributes. It doesn't matter what the attributes the model has in the backend. It only matters that these attributes are on the front end. So this is going to be returned by the AJAX call to the API server. And all my objects have an ID, and the ID is always a string. So since all objects, without any exception, have an ID, I'm not gonna put this in the attributes, because this is just I don't want to duplicate stuff. And ID is kind of not an attribute that you can, like, the user cannot edit the attribute. Whenever the user is creating a new object, the ID is going to be undefined until it's then created in the backend, and then the backend is going to send back the ID. So there's some angling to do with the ID. I'm just caring about the actual attributes that the user can edit over here. And the ID, this ID here that you're looking at, this is just a read only. The user can never edit the ID. If the user wants to edit the ID, they would have to delete the object and create a new one, but they cannot choose the ID because it doesn't matter choosing the ID. So there you go, view model. And the way I'm gonna do this is I don't actually know. Let's start by, I'm gonna start by changing my abstract editor. So this is so this is the form. You can see this is just a view component, but it's kind of a component that has, it's kind of dynamic component. So this form component actually does not exist. As you can see, it's not listed here over components. So there's a lot of meta programming over here. So this form, in the case of router, is going to be this router form. Just believe me. So yeah, this is it. And then there's going to be this slot, this save button slots, which is going to be the slot called after, which the form puts in here. After all the form is going to be the slot after, which is going to be filled with the save buttons. And the save buttons has some logic for, like, when it clicks save, it's going to put in a loading state and call the function to save, and then enable back the button when it is saved or when an error occurred. Well, anyway, you got the idea, I hope. I'm not going to focus on save buttons right now. I'm just going to focus on abstract editor, which is, I don't know where this is being used. So abstract editor. It is being used in, there's a file called edit router. So there you go. This is the component edit router. So this is the component, and I should install the Vue Chrome extension, because it's just very helpful to debug stuff. Cool, now I have the extension installed. There you go. And where is it? It was supposed to be somewhere. Okay, let's pin this, and then do we have to open the DevTools and look for view panel? View panel, I don't see view panel over here. Why? Isn't it working? Maybe open a new tab. That's gonna work. No, DevTools, look for view panel. So I was expecting it to be over here. What is wrong? Come on. Preferences. On all sides, yes. View, there we go. Was it here all the time and I didn't see it? Yeah, anyway, let's pick. Where's the pick button? Is this where there used to be a pick button? Switch to events, switch to view X. Oh, there we go, this one. So I'm gonna pick this thing, and this is probably gonna be the form. Yeah, and as you see here, so here's my app, and then there's a top progress, which is just this progress bar that appears on the top. and there go my menu, and here is my abstract editor. And why is this my abstract editor? So edit route, which is the route that is being mounted over here when this route is activated. This is just extending the abstract editor and putting these computed stuff here, which is saying that please use the router model as the model class and use the router form. So this is very declarative. There's a lot of meta programming, but it's very easy now. If whenever I want to make other forms, I just need to take this abstract editor, and I can just say the form. So the component here is going to be form, you see, and as you have here, mounted form. So this form is going to, in this case, map to the router form. And the model class computed attribute is going to be the router model. And this means that all the logic inside here is in the abstract editor. So I'm going to close this because it doesn't matter. And here is all the logic of the form itself. So yeah, so whenever this is mounted, there's a before route enter. Yeah, actually it's before route enter, because I don't want to, yeah, so I'm going to skip explaining that in this video, but it's going to load the full view. So load full view. It's going to happen right here. And what it's going to do, and I forgot a semicolon here. So it's going to get the progress bar, and it's going to start the progress bar. It is going to get the dependencies, which is, in the case of routers, there are 2 GET requests that has to be done before to fetch the list of tags and the list of whatever, topics, I think it is. So it's going to load dependencies for the view, and here it's where it's actually going to load the entity for the view. So load entity for view, and then this is just some promise handling. So it's going to wait for all promises to finish, and then it is going to close the progress bar, and it's going to apply the values inside the instance of the component. And it's going to say that loaded is true. So yeah, apply entity func. So load entity for view. Now this is going to fetch entity. So this is the function that is going to actually do the AJAX call to load my entity. So I pass in the entity ID and the model class, and it's going to return a promise, and this promise then is going to end up here. And this little function over here, so you don't have to understand all this code. I myself have to remember how this works, but it's gonna call this function. So this thing over here, yeah. So it is gonna call this function. So whenever the entities are finished loading, so via the AJAX call, I'm gonna put a debugger here, and you're gonna see that I'm not lying to you. Render function not defined. Shit, what did I change? So I probably changed something without realizing, and it's not working anymore. Template or render function, abstract editor. Not nice, not nice indeed. So now I have to find what I changed that is making this not to work anymore. Abstract editor. So it's saying that a render function does not exist. See what I did here. I accidentally pasted some content here and changed the tag template, which implements a render function. There we go. So here we are, and I can put back my debugger in here. So you're gonna see that on network, the last request was, yeah. So on network, you can see the last request, or one of the last requests, was actually this route. So when this request that is fetching the route object is finished, then we are coming here in this callback. And what we have in here is the VM. and the VM stands for, I don't know, I think it's ViewModel as well, but something from within Vue, and it refers to the Vue instance of this thing. So vm.model, so model, this model here is gonna be this model here in props. So it's gonna be this prop. So whenever we're changing this thing, we are actually changing this thing over here. And so essentially what this is doing is setting the model there. And this is probably, sorry about that. So this is probably what I want to put my view model thing inside. So I don't want to put the model directly. Instead, I want to create a view model. So let's do it. And what I'm going to need, so I have the model class already here. I have the, this value is just what came from the Ajax request, as you can see. And I want to wrap this. So I want to create a view model. I think it's new view model, right? And it's gonna take the value. So the value is what's coming from the Ajax request, and it's gonna also receive the model class, so we can know which class is this. So this is gonna tell this is a router object, and that's it. So vm.model equals new view model, and this is probably gonna break first because I have to import this. So first thing is to import view model from I think it's viewmodel.js, this which is this file over here. Let me reorganize a little bit. I can actually close these 3 files and put this back over here. There you go. You can also close this one and this one. No, probably this one I want to keep open for later. Yes. So abstract editor, now view model is over here, and view model is here. So let's put a debugger here, because it's been a while since I haven't written classes in JavaScript, so I don't quite remember whether, yeah, this is correct. So constructor data is going to be the data which came from the Ajax request, and model class is going to be that object declared there, which only has the attributes, the path, which was used by the Ajax, the thing that made the Ajax request, and the friendly name, which maybe, so we are mostly interested in the attribute thing over here. And yep. So this data, and the way I think I'm gonna do this is, well, first I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to use Lodash over here. So let's import it already. And the data is probably going to be the data, but so I don't know, I like to call this original data, and then what I like to do here, I'd like to do some processing. I'd like to clone this. So Lodash, I'm pretty sure Lodash has some deep clone functionality. So documentation, I'll go to deep clone deep, look at that. So Lodash clone deep, there should be a dot in here. So clone deep, and then the value, and then recursively clones value, and that's it. Cool. So I'm gonna throw away the data, and I'm just gonna keep the clone version of data. And I probably want to also do, well, only this actually. So I'm gonna do this, and now I can refresh, and there you go. Of course, the data is not gonna show up here. And I just realized it's 2 p.m. Am I having lunch yet? So I'm gonna order some lunch, and then I come back to the video later. Okay, I'm back from a long lunch pause, and indeed I made a lunch pause, but I also wrote down some code. So as you can see, my view model file or class is there's some more content now, and I'm beginning to reach a solution, I think. So what I did here actually is, so I did this View-Model class, and the way I did it is that it's gonna hold data. It's gonna hold data for a given model, which I'm calling data here, and it's gonna store the original data. So it's gonna make a deep clone of that object. It's gonna store the model class, and I'm calling here this concept of serialization. So serialized and deserialized values. So I put this variable called deserialized values, and then it's initializing fields. So initializing fields is actually, fields should not be the correct name, maybe attributes, but yeah, I'm gonna let it as it is right now. I'm gonna change maybe names later. So it's gonna create attribute fields, which is gonna go through each attribute in the model class. And another change that I did, but it's not completely ready yet, is that I changed the attributes from so this was previously an array, and now it's going to be an object. Although it's kind of weird that these ones map just to null. But anyway, and then I'm saying that custom attributes, it has what I'm calling a transformer. I don't know about the name. I just needed a name, you know. Naming is hard in computer science. But anyway, I'm calling a JSON object transformer, which is a class that I created above here in this file. And definitely I have to extract this later on to a different file. But for now, it's fine for it to be here. And it just has, although it's a class, it doesn't really, is not really instantiated. It is just has these 3 static methods. And the idea is that it can deserialize and serialize and check whether a given attribute is valid or not. So deserializing means it is gonna change. So the data from coming from a AJAX request or something, it is gonna change that data in a way that it is compatible with the view. So in my case, for this custom attributes attribute, it is gonna change it is gonna serialize. So once the object comes from the AJAX request, it is gonna be then deserialized, which means it is gonna be converted to a string, because the string is compatible with the code editor, so with the JSON code editor. And serializing is doing the other way around. So it's getting that string and transforming it in a JavaScript object, which is then later on going to be sent back to the server in form of update or like a post or a put request or even a patch request or something like that. And is valid is necessary to check, for instance, in my case here. So let's say this. So this is invalid JSON, and I have to know this before serializing it. So just put this is valid thing. So this field has a transformer because it has to be transformed. All these other fields do not need any transformation. So I did that, and the idea here is and also the view model now. This view model is going to have all the attributes. So this first function that is going to be executed here is going to go through all the attributes of the model class, and it's going to call object.defineProperty, which is going to then create a property in this very view model object with getters and setters, and it is always going to work with the deserialized values. So these are actually the values that are going to be inside the view here. So this is the view, and Vue.js is gonna it is gonna transform or manipulate. Or why there is no ID here? Oh, I forgot the ID field. Yeah. Anyway, it is gonna forgot what I was going to say. it is gonna deal always with this. So when I type something here, like I'm typing here, this is actually calling this set method here, which is then storing in the deserialized values in the attribute name. And when this input is getting the value for this field, it is invoking this, it is running this function here. And then after it goes to deserialize all fields. So it created all the properties inside the view model, inside the instance. And then it's gonna run through all the deserializers. So it's gonna go through each attribute. And if the attribute doesn't have any option, so for instance, in case for these name attribute and for allow topics and tags, which is just null, it is not gonna enter this if, and it's just gonna use a transformer to then store the. So it's gonna store this is gonna copy the attributes from the original data, which is the data coming in the initializer, and it's gonna store in the deserialized values object or hash table or whatever. And it is always gonna go through a transformer, and if the transformer is set like it is for the custom attributes field, it is gonna use in this case this transformer. Otherwise, it's gonna use the copy transformer, which is just a dummy transformer that just clones. So deserialization is just cloning the value, serializing is cloning the value, and checking whether it's valid is always valid. So yeah, that's it. So I'm storing here. And that's basically what I have here in ViewModel right now. And that was pretty much what I did outside this when I was not filming myself, because for some reason I could not. I was waiting for the food and I needed to use my phone, which I'm using to record myself. Anyway, there you go. The attributes are here. I forgot the ID, so I'm gonna right now I'm gonna put the ID here. So ID is kind of a special field because all view models are going to have an ID. So I'm going to go to view model, and I'm going to put initialize fields is create attributes field. So I'm going to create a method called create ID field. I'm going to keep using name field, although it's not, could be changed later on, but right now I'm going to use that. And yeah, 38. So I'm going to define this property called ID, and what it's going to do, I think I'm not going to store the ID in the deserialized values, but I'm going to store object ID equals null, let's say, and if data, if ID in data, so if data has the attribute ID, I don't know, yeah, maybe I have to change this later on. But for now, let's keep it like this. So if ID is in data, then let's set it to, I think I don't need to clone it, but I'm just gonna do it just in case. So it's gonna put the object ID here, and the ID field is gonna be a little bit special in that it's gonna return always the object ID. And I don't know about this, but definitely is, yeah, I'm going to implement this setter as well. And yes, this is going to be it. So ID never has transformation, so never is also declared. So let's see how it goes. Now I have the ID here, so that's nice. And what else do I need to do? So let me open my Postman, and so here's all my routes. So this is the API that this web client is using as well. And as you can see here, all my routes, and this is the route we are kind of working on. And what I'm going to do, I want to pick up this var route. So I'm going to duplicate and write in here get route. Actually, I keep saying route, but it's actually a router. Maybe I was a little bit unhappy when I named this, but yeah, it's a router, not a route. And it's a lot of work actually to change the naming of this, and I think router and route could be the same thing. So this is it. And now what I want to do, I want to update this router. So I'm gonna come to this one, and let's do like this. This ID comes out of this equation and goes here. And if I send this, it should one. Well, I don't know. This is just a line number. So yeah, 204 no content. So my put request doesn't return any content. It just returns 204 saying that okay, it was changed. And here, what I want to manually change these values. So custom attributes, I'm gonna put like foo is 123,000, and bar is gonna be an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and cooks gonna be 99. So that's it. Actually, I want to put a different object. I don't know, just something a little bit different. So yeah, there you go. And if I get this value, it's all here. And now I wonder what happens if I refresh this screen. There you go. This is very ugly. And I know why this is ugly. This is because we are still using the JSON editor, JSON code editor, which is expecting it is expecting an object, but now because I have this view model transforming, so if I come to models and remove this transformer, this is probably going to look fine. Yeah, look at that. But since this is now transforming the object to a string, and this guy here over here is not expecting a string, it is actually expecting an object. But a string is also valid JSON, right? So you could JSON parse, and a string when it is inside double quotes, this is a valid string. It's a valid JSON thing, and the type of this it's going to be a string. So it's you see. Yeah. So what I probably want to do is I want to change the logic of this JSON code editor in a way that it is now not going to look for an object itself, but rather it's going to look for a. I don't even know if I need this JSON code editor anymore. If I should just where is my form here? So if I maybe I should just use the code editor. And this is shit. This is duplicated. This is even wrong. What is going on here? So model.custom attributes. There you go. Code editor. I'm gonna change also this to code editor. I think I don't even need this. I think I can do it like this. Valid JSON. This does not exist anymore because code editor doesn't have this. I don't know. I like to declare like this. So let me put it like this. This does not exist, I think. Well, this is just an attribute. Is always going to be true, and since I removed this, it's always going to be true. So I'm going to just let there because probably I'm going to use to debug it later, because I want some way to tell whether the JSON is valid or not. And this method is also probably not going to not being used at all, so I'm going to remove it. Data load routine. This is also not being used, but just let it there because yeah. And where is my code editor? So yeah, I have to import it. So JSON code editor is now going to be called code editor, and instead of Vue, is now JS. So there you go. Here's the editor, and yeah, looks nice. So now if I cannot edit it. What is going on? Oh shit! The same problem again. Now this is not fun. Why is this happening? Yeah. So I thought this would solve the problem, but it's definitely not solving it. I think there should be some way. So now I start wondering how this thing over here works, because probably all the feedback loop like sending So I type something and then it sends the event, and then it goes to Vue.js, goes inside the model, and then the model is changed, and it fires back an event telling that the model has been changed. And then this guy over here is true. So probably now what is happening is that if I go to code editor and I'm watching this value thing over here, so probably what is happening is that if I only made this check, like if, so this is value and old value. So probably if I check whether the old value from the new value, if they have changed, so they have to be different. So now probably this is gonna fix the issue. No, this didn't fix the issue. Of course, this didn't fix the issue because, no, I don't know why actually. So you see, programming is not always everything is good and works. So this is still problematic. Let's put a debugger inside this and let's see what's going on. Are they equal? So let's start debugging. Let's change this value to 0. And v, now I regret having such a big value in here because I cannot compare them myself, but so v and ov are different. Yeah, of course, because of course. So the value of value has been changed. Of course, that's true. I must compare this not to value itself, but what the value inside the editor is. So of course these are gonna be different one from another. Otherwise there would be no change in here. So what I actually want to do is, if the new value is actually equal to the value that is inside this guy over here, then I don't want to call this setCode thing. However, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. That is exactly what I want to do. And how do I check the value? So this is initializing the editor, and whenever it changes, it goes. This is the editor. Yes, exactly. So this is how I get the value from the editor. So current editor, current value in editor. So just to be really 100% clear, this editor session get value. Now I'm gonna compare. So probably if I do it like this, it's already gonna solve my problem. So if the value that is inside the editor is different from the new value that is coming inside here, then and only then it is gonna call the setCode thing. And let's see if it works. So refresh. 0, there you go. Yeah, but it didn't work. So debugger. Okay, I see why it didn't work, because editor is actually a method. And it still didn't work. So what do I need to do? Well, let's call debugger. And let's do this dot editor. So it's a function, of course. Yeah, editor. Oh, it's a promise. There you go, it's a promise, that's why. So this editor, so my phone went off, somebody calling me, but I'm recording it also. As I was saying, so this editor, then is this always gonna solve? Yes, this is always gonna solve. I mean, gonna resolve. So then I can run this code. And now here I'm gonna have my editor. And now I can call this editor right like this. And is this it? Yeah, I guess so. So let's see if this works. Let's remove this. And there you go. Now it worked. Now I want to know if this is actually changing inside the model. These things keep on happening. I think I have a problem in my Webpack build script, and I think what is happening is that I'm getting a lot of different public dist. Where is this going to? I have to take a look on this because I think this is creating like 1,000 files. 1,000 different files. So its output is going to dist. So this path, I don't know. Where is this going to? No, this is not creating different files. If it would have been like this, then yeah, I would have 1,000 files. So yeah, all fine. I don't know why that happens. There we go. What I wanted to do is to come here to view and now inspect this form, and the form is gonna have a model which is gonna have data. No. So okay, this is the model, which is our instance of the ViewModel class, that class that I just created, and the object ID is here, as you can see, and the deserialized values, and this is what I am expecting to be updated whenever I change this. So let's see if that happens. Oh yeah, look at that. And it's already serialized JSON. What happens if, of course, it is just plain whatever I'm writing in here, writing stuff here that is not valid JSON. Yeah, you got it. And the original data should be here. So custom attributes, there we go. And as you can see, it's the original, so it is not deserialized. Model class is here, everything is here. I wonder what happens. I wonder what happens if I change it here. I cannot change this. I thought I could change this from here. Okay, I'm not gonna change that. Cool. So now it's working. However, now I need to change the save button logic in order for it to properly send the content. Not only send the content, but also run some validation. So I don't have any way of doing validation right now. Anyway, there is validation going on the backend. But for instance, let's test the validation actually. So here I can get the router. Here I'm going to update the router. And what if there's no validation here? I think I need a name. So if name is empty, it is gonna complain. There you go. So this is the kind of validation that is happening on the backend. And format is error, validation error, failed validations, path name. So this is the path over here. Length must be between 1 and 200 characters. There you go. What was the name again? Whatever, doesn't matter. But this kind of validation, if I hit save right now, I don't know what's gonna happen because I changed so much stuff. Well, let's just click on it and see what happens. Let's remove this. And there you go, error. Because I'm trying to iterate a non-iterable instance. Yeah, that's because I changed this from an array into an object. That's why that error is happening. So I remember somewhere in my kind of messy code base right now is I have a function that iterates over that. So it's using for off, and that's why it's not iterable anymore. Iterable, am I saying that? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Iterable. So this class is as you can see, the save button. So this save button is gonna have the label. You can have the label either save or create depending on whether the mode is to update or to create. And this is gonna call this.model. So yeah, so save button doesn't have any logic to verify that, which is 100% good, because this is just saving buttons. It should not have logic to validate or change data from the model. But the abstract editor is actually using this, and here is when the button calls the intent to update entity, and it's going to pass in the model and the model class. And this prepare model data is what is screwing up right now, because it is expecting. There you go. Here's our for off, and for off doesn't work if the object is an object instead of an array, for instance. So we have to do it like this, and this should fix it. That one was simple. However, I think there are more for objects here that I'm doing that I should not be doing. Well, let's see if that works. So now if I click save, what's going to happen? Router saved. So that means it has been saved. So if I come to Postman and get this again. Oh no, yeah, as you can see, it screwed up, and that was expected because I didn't fix the code. So ID is fine, of course, because it cannot be changed. Name is whatever. Allow topics, didn't touch the allow topics. New episode. Custom attributes. Cool. What it needs to do now is I have to change all this logic. So this prepare model data, it is going through all the attributes. So what it actually has to do now is I wanna put inside this view model here. I wanna so just to give you some context, this guy over here, it is taking the model, which is actually the data that is in the view, and which is actually an instance. Right now it's an instance of this view model class. So and it is going to prepare the data from this model into something that can then be sent to an AJAX request. So that's the only thing that this function does. I don't like to declare functions like this, so let's do it like this. Cool data attributes. But what I would like to do here is, now that the model is a view model, I would like to just call serialize. You see, so this is going to call serialize. Therefore, this method doesn't even need to exist. So this method was being used in two places, to create the entity and to update. Since I'm only doing the update part right now, I'm just gonna call it here. So serialize, and a little bit after I have to call something else here. The ID doesn't have to be set, I guess. This should not be here. And there we go. So yeah, model serialize. I'm thinking. Yeah, let's go for it. So model serialize. So I want to come here to view model, which is that kind of object, and I'll implement a serialize function. And what it's going to do is going to go through all the attributes and serialize them. it's gonna go, actually it's gonna do the opposite of this function. So let's just copy it, and it's gonna go through all the attributes. We have to take the attribute options because this is where the transform is gonna be. And then the deserialize value. So deserialize value is gonna be the deserialize values. Yep. And transformer is gonna be here. And so if copy transform, that's correct. So attribute options, if it is an object, then if it has a transformer, then transform is going to be the transformer. And I could abstract it. So this code is copied here, and I would like to extract this to a different method or different function. Now here I'm going to have the serialize value, and instead of calling deserialize, I'm going to call serialize. But there's going to be a gotcha here. There's going to be a catch, and we have to serialize the deserialize value. And now instead of doing this, it's going to create an object. So response object is going to be an object. And then it's going to come here, and instead of setting this, we're going to say this attribute name equals now the serialize value. Oops. Semicolon, and there you go. Is this enough for us? No. This is kind of going to work. Why did this happen? Oh yeah, because I changed I'm glad I did this, because now I can just send this request and the object is going to be good again. So I want to change like foo. I remove foo. So I'm going to remove foo. And this is a valid JSON, and I'm going to save. And routers undefined. Oh yeah. Why did this happen? Because the response object has no ID. This dot object ID. So there you go. Now it's probably gonna work. So once again, let's remove foo, click save, and router saved. Now if I get it, it's gonna have all the attributes, so bar and cooks, but it's not gonna have the foo attribute. So nice. Let's reinsert back the foo attribute. Well, this is of course gonna work. We checked that. So if I click save, if I refresh the page, it's gonna be there. However, if I remove only this comma, now we're gonna see an exception here. Yes, and we didn't see the exception, so this is a problem. What happened? So not cool at all. So if I just do this, it is saying that it has been saved, and in fact, what is going on here is that it was saved. So what kind of payload was sent to the server? Data, custom attributes was not sent. Why? So the problem is that the serialize thing is probably breaking here. Oh, because this try thing, convert to JSON value. Okay, I'm not checking. Now I see the problem. So this convert to JSON value thing, it is not checking. So anyway, I have to call the isValid function before serializing. So what I want to do is I want to run some basic validation. Yeah, I don't know how to. I'm not really sure how to do this right now, because serialize is supposed to serialize. But what if there are errors? We could check with isValid. So we could, for instance, implement a function here that would check every field. It could be something like this. Is valid. Serializable. Is valid. Let's call it it's valid. And there's going to be no response object. or there could be a response object that would like errors. Could be like get serialization errors. Maybe remove the get. So it's going to return serialization errors, and when there are no errors, it means that there are no errors. So response errors, this is going to be called errors, and oh shit, return errors, and we're going to go to each attribute, and this is starting now to get an I, so I'm going to change this. Let transformer equals transformer for, and then we have to pass the attribute name. What do we have to pass in here? Attribute options. This guy can go here. So this is now it's starting to get weird, because this transformer is going to start performing some validation when it was just supposed to do transformation. Transformer. So the transformer for attribute name for this model class. There we go. So let's copy this. And let's now implement this method. So if I have this as a method inside here, I don't need to pass the model class because I already have it. So I only need the attribute name. This model class attribute name transformer is going to be copy transformer, and if transformer return transformer. That's it. So let's move this method a little bit down, I would say. Actually, I would move it up, but let's move it down. And now I have the transformer. It's going to be like this. I don't need this. This, of course, I need. And let's say that transformer is always going to be non-null, so it cannot be null. Because just in case there's no transformer, it's going to return the copy transformer. So yeah, now my code is a little bit better. And where were we? Serialization errors. So there we go. So we have to kind of try to deserialize value, and then transformer, and transformer is going to check whether this is valid. So is valid. What is valid? The deserialized value. So these over here. So if it is not valid, then we're gonna add 2 errors. And I'm gonna say that field, like just something very dummy, field attribute name is not valid, and that's it. So and do something also here. I'll return 2 values. So errors.length. I hate auto completion of code. I really hate it. Errors.length if there are more than 1, and then the errors. Yeah, that works. That works. So serialization errors. Because I find it kind of lame to keep checking this every single time in code, so I'm gonna do this right there, and now we can know where it is. Is valid, and errors. And what we're gonna do, we'll call model.serialization errors, and that's it. It doesn't get any parameters. So if not valid, then what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna resolve. I'm gonna reject, and return. And this is not needed. And data is model serialize. So I'm gonna reject, but I'm also gonna pop a toast, just so I know that something went wrong. And this toast, I had it open here, the documentation for it. Where is it? I don't know. Maybe here? No. So that's view, was it here? What is that? It was a component called Vue.Toastify, I think. Package Json. Vue toastification. That one. So that's probably on npm, and I can check it here. And there was this website. Where is this website? It was here. Nah, that wasn't it. There was the live demo, because then on live demo I could change the colors. So this is a error message. So it's called error. Cool. So just change it. Oh no, I see I'm doing it wrong. So this one should actually be info, or it could be success. Anyway, can I do this in JavaScript? I never know. A, B, and then join using like this. Yes, this works. So I'm gonna concatenate all the errors together, or I could just pop multiple toasts, but I don't want to do that. So let's just errors dot join, and they're going to be joined by a comma. And timeout, so I'm going to remove that. And now I'm going to come here, and what is going on? Transformer 4 is not defined. That's because transformer 4, I didn't use this when calling it like this. Now it's working. Now let's remove this. Actually, I only remove this. When we click save, shit. I think my if is inverted. No, it's not inverted. So what is going on? This should have been invalid. Valid, true, errors. There's something wrong, yes. So it is valid when the number of errors is below or equal to 0. That's what I did wrong. So you see, I'm lost. Serialization errors, so this should be the other way around. And now I can remove this debugger, and now it's going to work. So remove that, click save. This is not cool because reject is not defined. How reject is not defined? I keep getting lost. Oh, because it didn't return. So that was before the promise. We have to be inside the promise here. Like we definitely have to be inside the promise. But I think I can return a promise that is going to be like a rejected promise. And then return rejected promise. I think there is a way to create a promise. Yes, there you go. So this promise is always going to be rejected. Promise not reject. Yeah. So this has to actually return a rejected promise. And so this is gonna work. 44. Save. If I get the router here, it's gonna have the correct value. And if I do this, now it's failed because my attribute is not valid. There we go. Now we have some. I have some very, very basic form of form validation, and it didn't go to the backend. Cool. So yeah, now I did what I wanted to, and I probably can remove this JSON code editor. I'm gonna remove it later. I'm gonna just think a little bit more about it, whether I should remove it or not. And here are the custom attributes. Cool. This is enough for this kinda live session. So I'm planning on doing some live sessions, and this one is not live, but I'm gonna edit it and prepare myself for doing live sessions in the future. And yeah, anyway, valid JSON, I have to remove this. Yeah, I have to think this through, and yeah, but the concept worked. So far, so good. I have to add some validation on top of it, but I want to do the validation on the backend because I really don't want to re-implement validation on the front end and also in the backend. But certainly this kind of validation should be in the front end. Like the input is, I don't know, this kind of totally invalid. I cannot even send this to the backend as it is, because I'm not sending the string that is in here. I'm sending the actual object, and I cannot even serialize the object. So there's no way for me to send this to the backend. So this means the serialization cannot happen in the backend. And what else is that? All other validation should happen in the backend. So for instance, this one, if I remove the name, I'm gonna have a response of 400 bad requests, and then I'm gonna have the error here and saying which field. So this information I want to show, but I don't want to show it. Of course, I don't want to show it like this, like in a pop-up. This one I also don't want to show it like this. It should be a message that goes somewhere. Ideally, this would highlight the fields, like highlight the fields that are wrong. But to make it more simple, I'm just gonna add a message bar on top of it and listing all the problems that are there. Yeah, there you go. So that's it for today. See you next time.